All right, today we are tackling one of the biggest, most powerful, and honestly, most controversial economic tools ever invented: quantitative easing. The best way to think about it, it's like the financial world's emergency fire hose, something you only break out when the whole economy is basically on fire.
So, to really wrap your head around QE, you first have to understand the sheer panic that leads to it. I mean, just imagine for a second. The economy is in an absolute freefall, and the one tool you've always relied on to stop the bleeding suddenly just breaks. What on earth do you do then?
And that's exactly where our story begins. We're talking about a crisis so bad that it forces the people in charge to literally tear up the old playbook and try to invent something brand new on the fly. I want you to picture it. It's 2008. The global financial system is teetering on the edge of collapse. Confidence has just evaporated. No one, not businesses, not you, not me, is spending money. Everyone is just hoarding cash, and the entire engine of the economy is grinding to a halt. Now, in a normal crisis, the central bank's big move is to cut interest rates, right? Make it cheaper to borrow money, get people spending again. But what happens when you've already cut them again and again, all the way down to zero? Well, you've hit what economists call the zero lower bound. Your main tool is completely maxed out, but the fire is still raging. And this is the absolute nightmare scenario. It's called a deflationary spiral. It's this vicious cycle where falling prices make people put off buying things, which of course causes prices to fall even more. It's like an economic black hole that can suck an economy down into a depression for years, even decades. This is the existential threat QE was built to fight. So you've got broken tools, a full-blown disaster on your hands. What's left? Well, this is when central banks decided to unleash their brand new super weapon, the money machine we call quantitative easing. So what is this thing really? Well, at its core, it's actually kind of simple and a little bit shocking. A central bank, like the US Federal Reserve, just creates new money, digitally, just out of thin air. And then it uses that brand new money to go out and buy a whole bunch of financial assets, mostly government bonds from big commercial banks. And this quote right here, it gets to the heart of just how radical this is. This is the central bank basically saying, you know what, all those old rules, we're breaking them. It's an emergency power, justified only because the entire global financial system was fragile and on the verge of just shattering. Okay, so here's how the mechanism works in 3 basic steps. 1, the central bank just creates money. Poof. 2, it uses that money to buy bonds from banks. And 3, all of a sudden, those banks are sitting on massive piles of cash. The idea is to basically flood the financial system with so much money that it just has to start moving again. And this chart, well, it gives you a sense of the sheer mind-boggling scale we're talking about. The central bank's balance sheet, that's basically all the stuff it owns, it doesn't just grow, it explodes. We're not talking about millions or even billions, we're talking trillions of dollars. It's like the central bank went from being the referee of the game to being the biggest player on the field. But here's the thing, just dumping all that cash into banks isn't the end goal. That's just step 1. The real magic of QE, or at least the intended magic, is the chain reaction it's supposed to kick off all across the economy. So the first ripple. By buying up so many government bonds, the central bank drives their price way up. And here's a little rule of finance. When a bond's price goes up, its interest rate or yield goes down. And because those rates are a benchmark for everything else, it starts to push down long-term interest rates everywhere. Mortgages, car loans, business loans, it all gets cheaper. Now, this leads to this really fascinating bit of financial psychology, something called the portfolio rebalancing effect. And this is the absolute key to understanding how QE is supposed to jump from the banking system into the stock market and the rest of the economy. So here's how it plays out. The central bank comes in and buys up all the super safe government bonds it can find. This leaves all these big investors sitting on huge piles of cash with nowhere safe to put it. So they're kind of gently, but also forcefully, pushed to find something else to buy, something riskier, like stocks or corporate bonds. And all that new money flooding into those assets, it drives their prices way up. And that rising stock market, that rising housing market, it creates what economists call the wealth effect. It's simple, really. When your retirement account goes up or your house is worth more, you just feel wealthier. And when you feel wealthier, you're a lot more likely to go out and actually spend money, which is what really boosts the economy. Well, that's the theory anyway. Now, it's really important to get this straight. QE is not helicopter money.
That's the idea of just printing money and dropping it from the sky, giving it directly to people. QE is indirect. The money goes to the banks first, and it's in exchange for something, those bonds. It's a swap, not a handout. It's designed to work through the pipes of the financial system.
Of course, when you use a multi-trillion-dollar fire hose to put out an economic fire, well, you're probably going to get some other things wet. And this brings us to all the controversial side effects and the huge debates that still rage about QE today.
The number one fear, the one everyone talks about, has always been inflation. I mean, it's just common sense, right? If you create trillions of new dollars out of thin air, doesn't that make all the existing dollars out there worth less? For a long, long time after 2008, that didn't happen. But it is always the biggest risk, the one that keeps central bankers awake at night.
But that's not all. There are other huge concerns. Does QE just create dangerous bubbles in the stock market or in housing? Does it actually make inequality worse, since that wealth effect we talked about really only helps people who already own stocks and houses? And what if all that money just gets stuck in the banking system and never actually makes it out into the real economy to create jobs? And this leads us to what might be the hardest question of all. Once you turn this incredible money machine on, how in the world do you ever turn it off without causing a whole new crisis? Well, the process of trying to end QE is called tapering, and it is incredibly delicate. See, the markets get addicted to that steady flow of money from the central bank. If you even whisper about turning off the tap too quickly, investors can totally freak out, sell everything, and send interest rates soaring. It's so common, it even has a name, a taper tantrum. And this is the ultimate problem. It's known as the QE trap. It's this awful dilemma where the very tool you use to save the economy might have made the economy permanently dependent on it. So any attempt to take away that support could trigger the exact same kind of chaos you were trying to prevent in the first place. Which leaves us right here with the biggest question of all. Quantitative easing was born as a temporary break glass in case of emergency tool. But now, decades and trillions of dollars later, has it become a permanent part of our economy? Did the cure for one crisis accidentally sow the seeds for the next one? That is the debate that's going to define economics for a long, long time to come.